Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're doing a deep dive today into something I know a lot of new parents think about, breastfeeding. We got a hold of this great guide, the New Mother's Guide to Breastfeeding from the American Academy of Pediatrics, and it's really got all the need-to-know info.
It really does. It's super comprehensive. Like, it covers everything from the science behind breast milk, what makes it so good, to like practical tips for those first few weeks and beyond.
So let's get into it. One thing you always hear is breast milk being called liquid gold, but this guide really gets into why, like beyond just saying breast is best.
Right. It's like we know it's good, but why? And they break down all those specifics, like the antibodies, the immune factors, all those things that basically make it like this personalized superfood. And get this, it changes as your baby grows.
Really written.
Yeah, no, it adapts to their developmental needs. It's wild.
That's incredible. Like a custom meal plan delivered, no wonder breastfed babies are less likely to get like ear infections, eczema, even things like childhood leukemia and SIDs, which is scary to even think about.
It's true. And it's not just what's in the milk, it's the act of breastfeeding itself. Skin-to-skin contact, it releases all these hormones in both mom and baby, prolactin, oxytocin, and those have such a calming bonding effect.
It's amazing how nature works that out.
Mhm.
And speaking of feeling good, I love that the guide talks about the benefits for moms too, not just the baby.
So important because it is a big commitment for moms, physically and emotionally. Like those hormones we talked about, they help moms too. Prolactin can be really calming, and oxytocin, that's often called the love hormone, because it creates these feelings of connection.
It's a win-win. Everyone benefits. Plus, there's the physical stuff for moms the guide mentions, like helping with weight loss after pregnancy and maybe even lowering the risk of some cancers.
Exactly. Lots of good stuff. But I know from talking to new parents, it's not always easy. There are a lot of questions, anxieties, especially at the beginning.
Oh, for sure. Like, what can I eat? Is coffee okay? What about sushi? Everyone wants to know about the sushi.
The age-old questions. The guide actually spends a good amount of time on that kind of thing. And the good news is you don't have to go on some crazy restrictive diet.
That's a relief. So what about the sushi? Is it a no-go?
Well, the guide gets into specifics, and it's more about making informed choices. It's not so much about avoiding it altogether, but being aware of mercury in fish. Like choosing low mercury options is best. Things like salmon or shrimp. Even canned light tuna is fine. They even break down how different types of tuna have different mercury levels, which I didn't know.
So it's more about being aware than depriving yourself. I like that. But food isn't the only worry. What about medications? That's a big one.
It is, and understandably so. But good news again, most medications are totally fine while breastfeeding. But it's always smart to double check with your doctor or your pediatrician just to be safe.
Right. Better safe than sorry. What about if mom gets sick? Can you still breastfeed then? I bet a lot of people worry about that.
It's a common concern. But here's the cool part. When a mom is sick, her body is making antibodies to fight that off, right? Those antibodies, they actually transfer to the baby through breast milk.
Whoa, seriously, that's like a superpower or something. Built-in protection when they need it most.
It's true. Nature's way of giving them an extra boost. Now, there are some cases where breastfeeding might need to be paused for a bit, like if the mother has HIV, there's a risk of transmission. In those situations, doctors would talk about other options to make sure the baby's fed safely.
Makes sense. Every situation is different. Talking to your doctor is so key.
Definitely. And speaking of unique situations, the guide even covers tandem nursing, so breastfeeding while pregnant or after a new baby comes.
Tandem nursing. I've never even heard of that. What is that exactly?
So it's when a mom is breastfeeding both a newborn and an older child. Sounds wild, but it's more common than you might think. And get this. The guide says a mother's milk actually changes again during tandem nursing, so it meets the newborn's needs even while the older sibling is still nursing.
Wow, that is incredible. Our bodies are amazing. It's like this whole superpower I never knew about. So tandem nursing is possible, but are there certain challenges to it, things to consider?
There can be, yeah, but the guide does a great job of outlining those and giving some practical tips for making it work. It's all about finding a rhythm that works for everyone involved, mom and both babies.
It's really incredible how adaptable the human body is. This guide really shows that. But let's be real. Practicality is key, especially for moms who are also going back to work, which is so many of us.
You're so right. Going back to work after having a baby is the reality for a lot of mothers, and the guide acknowledges that it doesn't have to mean stopping breastfeeding.
That's so good to hear, because I know a lot of moms feel like they have to choose between the two.
Right, and the guide is very clear that you don't. It actually has a whole section about your rights as an employee who's breastfeeding, like legally. You have the right to reasonable breaks and a private place to pump milk at work.
It's great that those protections are in place, but I know from experience that it doesn't always play out that way. Like some workplaces are just way more supportive than others.
That's true, and that's why the guide really emphasizes talking to your employer about your needs and your rights early on, ideally before you even go back to work.
Such good advice.
Mm.
On a practical level, are there tips for making pumping at work less stressful?
Oh, for sure. They have this whole section, Pumping 101. It talks about finding the right pump for you, tips for storing breast milk safely, and how to fit pumping into your workday.
So helpful, it's like a pumping survival guide. But even with the best laid plans, things can still come up, like engorgement or those clogged milk ducts. Those can be rough.
Oh, tell me about it. The guide actually has some good stuff on that, some practical solutions you can try. You know about the chilled cabbage leaves.
Wait, really? Cabbage leaves, that's like an old wives' tale or something.
I know, right? But apparently there's actually some evidence that it works. Something about the coolness, and they say the slightly crushed leaves can help bring down the swelling because of their anti-inflammatory properties.
Wow.
Wild.
That's amazing. I love those little aha moments in this guide. But on a more serious note, when should a mom actually call the doctor? Be concerned.
Such a good point. They really emphasize paying attention to the baby's cues. Like, are they gaining weight consistently, having enough wet diapers, generally content, those kinds of things. If you see a big change in their feeding patterns, their behavior, or if you're having pain that won't quit, definitely better to be safe and call your doctor or a lactation consultant.
Yeah, trust your gut, right?
Uh,
You know your baby best. Speaking of support, I love that the guide talks about how crucial partners are for breastfeeding success.
So true. It's not just a mom thing at all. It takes a team.
Exactly. And they give some really solid advice for partners, like helping with those nighttime feedings or even just offering encouragement, which I know can mean the world when you're sleep deprived.
It really does. The guide even acknowledges that dads can feel a bit lost, like they want to help but aren't sure how. So it's about finding ways they can be actively involved, which is good for everyone.
Definitely. Having a supportive partner can make or break the whole experience. But like all good things, it does come to an end. Weaning, that transition, can feel kind of overwhelming for both mom and baby.
It's a big step, and every family is going to approach it their own way. The guide has some thoughts on making it go smoothly, though.
I'm all ears because I know first-time parents especially can feel pressure to do it a certain way or at a certain time.
Yeah, and the guide steers clear of that. They really emphasize following the baby's cues and what feels right for both mom and baby.
I like that. So, not about forcing anything, more about what feels natural.
Exactly. They suggest going slowly, gradually decreasing how often you feed or how long each feeding is, and then offering other ways to comfort and bond during that time, like extra cuddles, reading together, that kind of thing.
It's about finding those new ways to connect as they grow. It
Yeah.
really is. It's like you said, a transition, not the end. And one thing I really appreciate is how the guide makes it clear that any amount of breastfeeding is good, like whether it's weeks, months, even longer, those benefits are still there.
Absolutely. Every drop makes a difference. And it's about feeling good about that journey, no matter how long it lasts. One thing the guide does really well, I think, is talk about the emotional side of things.
Oh, for sure. It's not just physical, right?
No.
There's that whole deep connection between mom and baby.
Exactly. And they really encourage mothers to trust their gut, listen to their babies, and reach out for support if they need it. It's like a reminder that this whole breastfeeding thing, it's a learning curve, just like all of parenting, really.
So true. No one's perfect at this. And sometimes, even when you try your best, it just doesn't work out.
Yeah.
The guide talks about that too, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Like it acknowledges that sometimes breastfeeding isn't possible or it's just not the right fit for every family, and that's okay. There are other ways to make sure your baby is happy, healthy, and well fed.
Right, like using donor milk or formula feeding, whatever works for your family.
Exactly. Fed is best, as they say. But even if you're not breastfeeding, a lot of the principles in the guide still apply, like skin-to-skin contact, holding your baby close when you're feeding them, creating that loving, supportive bond.
Those are great takeaways, and I think that's what makes this guide so helpful. It's not about one right way to do things. It's about giving parents the knowledge, the resources, and the confidence to make the choices that work for them.
Couldn't agree more. It's all about supporting parents, whatever their journey looks like.
Well said. This has been such an interesting deep dive into the world of breastfeeding. I have to say, I thought I knew the basics, but this guide really opened my eyes to the how complex it is, how beautiful all the science behind it.
It's pretty remarkable, isn't it? It just shows you knowledge is power, and the more we all understand about breastfeeding, the better we can support moms, babies, and their families.
Absolutely. And on that note, a huge thank you to you, our expert, for taking us through this deep dive. And to everyone listening, thanks for being here. Remember, every breastfeeding journey is unique. Trust your instincts, ask for help when you need it, and enjoy those special moments with your little one. Until next time, happy breastfeeding, happy parenting, and keep those minds curious.
Learn more at mommyhood101.com.